There is a story in the Bible I want to get to. I know not everyone's a believer. I get that. I wish you would be because it's your eternal soul and all and where you're going to spend eternity, but it's not that big a deal. It's actually the big deal. I want to start, though, with a just ground setting statement. There are times when people just go completely off the rails. We're seeing that. We're seeing all forms of derangements around literally Hitler and literally Hitler Jr. Elon Musk, of course, is literally Hitler Jr. now. And it even comes down to people who used to be smart political thinkers. And yes, we're building up into King Josiah. That's someone from the Bible. And I get it. Not everyone's a believer. I'll say that again. Please, please, please forgive me for sharing what I believe. And I know you always do. So Jimmy Carville back in the day used to make some sense. He was a smart political thinker. He sat down to talk with Chris Cuomo, who's looking buff.
What are you going for here with the, I'm worried that Trump has syphilis?
Well, okay. First of all, there's something wrong with him. That's pretty clear.
What's that all behind Jimmy Carville? Is that is that grape juice and such? Oh gosh, what? That looks like grain whiskey. A whole bunch of it.
That's meeting in the Oval Office was a significant variation. Secondly, we do know that he did have red splotches on his hand, which it could be an indication of syphilis. But the other thing that we know that we had to talk about on January the 17th, 2017. Keith Schiller and two other goons broke into his doctor's office, Dr. Bornstein.
Wait, I'm not kidding. I can smell booze. I'm serious. I can smell booze coming off the man. So he's going through things we know but don't know. You don't know that President Trump has syphilis because there's no signs he has syphilis. He's mentally quite sharp. If you do have medical conditions, there's things you need to know because they're going to come back and they're going to try to, once again, contain the things you can get for a medical condition. And yes, we're going to get to King Josiah and this picture of President Trump and all of that in just a second. Do you know about All Family Pharmacy? These guys stood up against the COVID madness. They continue to provide hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and antibiotics. They are actually a family pharmacy, for real, run by two brothers. Their mother works there and handles the bookkeeping. They're actually very funny guys. And they're patriots. They came out and stated right out front, this COVID stuff is not about helping you. This is about controlling you. It's not about making you healthy. They are not like these other big famous health freedom companies that will send you hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and antibiotics. They're actually the provider, okay? So when they do this stuff, you're not paying a markup upon markup upon markup. Plus, if you have a question about the meds, you can call the pharmacy. And they'll talk to you. If you use one of these big famous health freedom companies, good luck. You won't be able to get anybody on the phone because they don't provide you the phone number. So visit allfamilypharmacy.com/Herman for 10% off with promo code Herman10. Don't wait to be prepared. Protect yourself and your family today. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/Herman now. Use coupon code Herman to save 10% and be protected by what they have planned for you next. You may have seen this picture. President Trump from 2017 to 2021. And President Trump posted this. And in the middle, 2021 to 2025, is a picture of the auto pen signing Joseph R. Biden Jr. And then, of course, President Trump's mugshot with a American flag behind it now. President Trump posting that. President Trump's not King Josiah. I don't even know that President Trump is saved, honestly. I think that he is at the most an immature Christian. I know I just angered a bunch of people. Just hear me. It's not a sin to be an immature Christian. It means you're new at doing it. And I think President Trump is being humbled. I think there's great signs in that arena, but he is being used by God. And of this, I have absolutely no question. One of the lesser known books in the Bible is the book, the story of King Josiah. And it's from 2 Kings, and it begins in 22. And it tells a story of a young kid, 8 years old, when he became king. And I know it seems weird, but that's the way they did things then. He reigned in Jerusalem 31 years. His mother's name was Jebedah, daughter of Adiah. She was from Bostath. Let me just kind of story this, as we say in Preacherville. So this guy's very young. Obviously, he's a kid. Obviously, he takes over the kingdom. And someone comes to him, one of the high priests, and Hilkiah is his name. The high priest came to the secretary. I found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord. So they were doing work on the temple. And King Josiah said, hey, pay the people doing the work in the temple. And they came back and they found this book or this scroll. I mean, it wouldn't be a book. It'd be a scroll. And it's the law from Moses. And the people had forgotten the law. They'd literally forgotten the law written by the man who helped them come out of Egypt. God worked through Moses to do that, brought them out of bondage. So Hilkiah the high priest said to Stephen the secretary, "I found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord." He gave it to Shaphan, who read it. Then Shaphan the secretary went to the king and reported to him, "Your officials have paid out the money that it was in the temple of the Lord and have entrusted it to the workers and supervisors of the temple." Then Shaphan the secretary informed the king, "Hilkiah the priest has given me a book." And Shaphan read it from the presence of the king. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his robes. That means he was upset. He was like, "I can't believe we aren't doing this." He gave these orders to Hilkiah the priest, Achim son of Shaphan, Akbor son of Micaiah, Shaphan the secretary of Asaiah and the king's attendant. "Go and inquire of the Lord for me and for the people and for all Judah about what is written in this book that has been found. Great is the Lord's anger that burns against us, because those who've gone before us have not obeyed the words of this book. They've not acted in accordance with what is written there concerning us." So it turned into a literal bloodbath, and God forbid that happen here. I'm not calling for that at all. But what happened was they found out that there were a bunch of so-called priests who were misleading the people, teachers misleading the people, involving them in horrible, terrible, ungodly, satanic sacrifices. So he ended a bunch of lives, Josiah, and he was a righteous king. I mean, these people were leading their flocks to hell. President Trump's not a pastor, but God is using him in a very, very similar way. We've forgotten the law. In the United States, there is almost an across-the-board forgetting of order. These rogue judges are a great sign of this. So the rogue judges are district court judges, and if the word district means anything, it means they have limits. It doesn't mean national. And their decisions are so often written clownishly, such as quoting the musical Hamilton. So President Trump's team was wise to not give in to this latest thing to stop the deportation of these illegal immigrants. Axios wrote about that. The Trump administration says it ignored a Saturday court order to turn around the 2 plane loads of alleged Venezuelan gang members because the flights were over international waters. Therefore, the ruling didn't apply to them. Why it matters, Axios. The administration's decision to defy a federal judge's order is exceedingly rare and highly controversial. Court order defied. First of many, as I've seen, warning the start of a true constitutional crisis, National Security Attorney Mark Zaid said. He's a Trump critic. The constitutional crisis is the forgetting of the law. President Trump is the elected president of the United States. Even the Democrats admit that. Elected by in his case, the majority of voters and the majority of the Electoral College, not just a plurality. He represents all the nation. The Senate is the next. They are represented statewide, then the House. Elected representatives always carry more weight than appointed representatives, and there are geographic limits. You, as a congressman from the 5th District of Washington State, cannot go represent citizens from the 6th District of Washington State. You can't say, "Today I represent the whole state." You don't get to do that. There are limits. Districts mean a thing. It means they represent a district. And in the case of the deportation order, it's made worse by the fact that none of the people on that airplane were in D.C. The people who were being ordered to be brought back weren't in D.C. when that ridiculous circuit court judge made that decision and attempted to have his verbal order override his written orders. Clown show. Oh, incidentally, he was also involved in the FISA court decision to spy on Trump's campaign. See, President Trump is not a pastor. I'm not saying he's King Josiah, but I'm saying we are a nation that has forgotten law and order. Marco Rubio talked to the truly unbelievably good at being arrogant and wrong, Margaret Brennan. And they talked about another situation involving immigration. And of course, it has to do with a guy who was organizing terror-type activities on behalf of Hamas in our nation.
Is there any evidence of a link to terrorism, or is it just his point of view?
Yeah, they take over I mean, do you not? I mean, you should watch the news. These guys take over entire buildings.
We
They
covered
vandalize
it
colleges.
intensely.
They shut down
I'm
colleges.
asking about the
Well, then you should
specific
know that
justification for the revocation of his visa. Was there any evidence of material support for terrorism?
Was the negotiator negotiating on behalf of people that took over a campus, that vandalized buildings? Negotiating over what? That's a crime in and of itself, that they're involved in being the negotiator, the spokesperson, this, that, the other. We don't want it. We don't need these people in our country. We never should have allowed them in the first place.
It's a great answer. And he makes clear that no one has a right to this, right, in this form of visa. We're forgetting law and order. If you brought someone into your house, you invited them into your house to come and stay, and they walked in and began cursing and saying, look at this garbage you live in. Look at this. And your family, your family's a bunch of bigots, and look how they stink, and your wife's a horrible cook. How long before you say, hey, invitation revoked, out? In this case, they are representing this guy, a terrorist organization. Let's call it what it is. But we've forgotten law and order. And when law and order is being replaced, when people have been living without the law, it's going to freak people out. It was not a problem for that judge when the figurehead Biden was being caused to welcome in plane loads of illegal immigrants, many of them cartel members. But all of a sudden, it's a problem now that they're sending them home, maybe even on the same airplane. You know, Jasmine Crockett, this woman who is inexplicably represents a district in Texas. Oh, I'm sorry, all of Texas. No, she represents the nation. No, she's a congresswoman, but she represents the nation because district doesn't mean anything. She came out in support of keeping these cartel operatives and soldiers in America.
To deport undocumented Venezuelans that the administration say are dangerous individuals with ties to the gang Tren de Aragua. That gang is obviously associated with a lot of crime, human trafficking, drug dealing, theft, shootings, including in your state of Texas, right outside of your congressional district. Do you agree with this? And if not, what's your issue with the U.S. using any tool at its disposal to remove undocumented, violent people from this country?
Come on,
well,
Jasmine.
My argument is that we already have tools that are available to remove undocumented violent people from our country. And so the idea that you want to go into a zombie law, this is kind of like what we saw in Arizona when they decided to revive a zombie law around abortion.
A zombie law. She's referring to a law created by our founders. And it's a zombie law because it's old? No, it's a tool necessary in times of emergency to remove people from our country who do not mean us well. They've just forgotten the law. President Trump is not King Josiah, but God is using him to restore law and order because God is a God of order, not chaos.